everybody. Welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Ethan Bull. Ethan, it's great to connect with you. Thank you to our mutual friend, Justin Breen, for introducing us. You're the co-founder of ProAssisting, the next generation of remote executive assistants, a firm for business owners and C-suite executives. Think community, we talk a lot about delegation and time and what we're doing with our time and how we can leverage our time to grow. And we're going to be talking a lot about that on the show with Ethan today. But Ethan, before we jump in, I am a business coach. I work with clients all over the globe and who are successful and stuck. I get them unstuck. And so I believe people learn through story, and my guests get to share in my mission of helping people get unstuck. So what is a recent stuck point you've had, and how did you get unstuck?
I mean, you say recent. I would say,
It can be an oldie but goodie. It doesn't matter.
It can be an oldie but goodie. Our story is kind of very, very similar to a lot of other people, where we were working as employees, both my wife and I, as executive assistants, and then back in 2018. She was home with our kids, and I had parted ways with my previous employer. And we said, maybe we can do this remote. Maybe we can do this, on our own as a business. And, every entrepreneur deals with that moment of not knowing it's going to work until it does or it doesn't. And so we got unstuck by having a unique business model, finding the right clients at the right time, and proving to us in about 6 months that we were on the right track.
Yeah. I would, as an observer listening to that story, I would say, it was the right time and it happened in 6 months, and your unique proposition was probably because you were doing what was in full alignment with what you wanted to do. I think a lot of people, just rewinding to your, we thought maybe we could do it a different way. I think when the maybes are in alignment with kind of, you, and in this case, you and your wife, and when you really know it's in alignment, then things pick up really quickly. I remember when I launched my coaching business over 8 years ago on social media, it picked up quickly because it was something I wanted to do since I was 18. It was just full alignment with who I was. It kind of exuded the energy of all of that. So take us from the maybe and how you maybe knew or didn't know it was in alignment with you, and how you went from maybe to execution.
Well, execution is just about doing the work, and the relationship between a principal and their executive assistant is a very intimate relationship, and that actually creates a foundation for long-term partnership. Yeah. So Stephanie and I basically built our business to fill ourselves up with clients.
Yeah.
And then the clients kept coming when we were full.
Yeah.
And that's when we started seeking out talent on the EA side that aligned with our business model and our beliefs of what top level EA support is.
Yeah.
And technology played a huge role in that. By 2018, 2019, it had finally caught up to where it didn't matter if you had a Mac computer or a PC computer.
Right.
And you could do 95% of what you do remotely.
Yeah.
And then that last 5% could be filled in by like TaskRabbit, or Messenger service, or other services that were popping up as well. So it really was an opportune time.
Yeah.
But what you said earlier kind of resonates with me, because sometimes I'll run across an entrepreneur or someone who wants to start their own business. And let's say they were a sales executive for a Fortune 500 company, and they're like, I want to open a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I'm like, have you ever opened a restaurant before? No, but I really want to open a restaurant. That can work, but you're stacking the deck against you from the beginning, in terms of entering something that you can't point to in your previous career and say, I have this experience.
Yeah.
So that was our whole thought process.
That's good. Good. All right. Good. I love it. Okay. I'll give one thought before we move on for that. Right. It's picking something that's not only in alignment with you, but also is consistent with your track record. So you can kind of when you started your business, you knew you could be ahead of real time when you started it because you'd been living in it. So I
Correct.
just want to highlight that. I think it's important. All right, let's talk about the power of delegation. A lot of times when I work with executives and managers and you know salespeople. I work with lots of different people within a company, and one of the things I see is people have a hard time delegating. People have a hard time figuring out. So whether it's an executive assistant, a fractional assistant, a VA, whatever you call it, then it's the first question is well, how do I determine what they actually do for me? And then how do I get them to actually do it so I know it's right? So just will you talk about that transition of delegation?
It's natural. I mean, business leaders, folks at the top of their game in the C-suite or in an organization, they're usually type A micromanagers. And they want things done their way. And that has gotten them to where they are. But to really level up, you have to realize that sometimes something can be done in a number of different ways. And that you also have to get over the idea of the quote unquote, I can do it faster myself. And understanding that, yes, you may have to train someone to do what you want them to do initially, but you have to think how much time is compounded week in, week out, month in and month out, year in and year out, when you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
The other thing that helps, Jeff Bezos says there's a two-way door and a one-way door. And on the EA side of things, a lot of decisions or actions are two-way doors. They can be undone and done a different way and easily turned back. It's those one-way door decisions that the principal has to be very cognizant of, because once they go through it, there's no going back. So if at least you give yourself the grace of knowing that a lot of things my EA is doing are two-way door decisions that we can adjust and change,
Yeah.
then it gives you the comfort to hand over the reins.
Yeah. Let's talk about, thank you for that. Let's talk, you mentioned earlier time compounding. I love talking about the whole concept of compounding, and I talk both with clients and in keynotes, asking people the question, what is your time worth, right? What is your time worth? How can you work 3 years in 1 year, right? It's really easy when you really kind of zoom out and you become an observer. I do a time management training that ranges from 3 hours to a full day, where people find hours a day that they are wasting. And so when you enter in an executive assistant, I have 7 virtual people that work for me, and I have a global business, and I'm the only coach. And because of that, I can see a ton of people in a day because I delegate to all of them to do things that I don't want to do or shouldn't do or don't need to do. But let's talk about what someone's time is worth. And then when they start understanding that, how they really begin to find more time in their day. Maybe you can give some stories. You don't have to mention client names of clients that you have helped where they uncover, I'm talking to clients all the time where I'll just give a quick story. I was working on with a client. The details don't matter, but they were saying they've been doing something a certain way for 7 years, and I suggested another way and they said that just saved me 200 to 300 hours a year, just doing it a little bit differently. Then you add on to that delegating. All of a sudden, you find the hours. So just dive into that kind of arena.
Well, it's different for every single business owner or executive. In terms of thinking about what your time is worth, if you are a solopreneur, what was your EBITDA last year? Divided by probably 1,600 hours, maybe 1,800 hours, to get kind of that hourly rate that may help you invest in support, in the right kind of support that meets your needs. And that's the other thing. Today's day and age, there are so many different ways and to get that support at any different price point and any different level, that it's really encouraging. But as a specific example, we have a client who does deep thinking, kind of research and report work, and they needed to find time in their calendars, the two founders, to do that work while also meeting the needs of their current clients and their prospects. And by bringing in one of our assistants, and after a few months of working with that assistant was able to answer so many questions before they even got to the plate of the two principals. And they were able to really block that time out on a weekly basis on their calendar to do the deep work
Yeah.
that then they got paid for. So there was a direct correlation. The other thing is, though, it is hard to put ROI onto an executive assistant. It's not a direct line normally. And so you sometimes have to take that leap of faith, and then also think about.
Can I pause you for a second?
Sure.
I think you can quantify that in the following way, is that if you delegate things where your time is where you free up your time, you can then say, okay, I have X amount of hours now to do my leading activities that actually help me grow my business. And if I invest more time in those leading activities with a clearer mind that other things are getting done that don't cloud my 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day scientific number, where 80% are negative and 90% repeat themselves every day. And I can delegate some of that so I don't carry the stress of, if it's getting done and I know it's getting done right, then I can hyper focus and ask the extra question, listen for the extra pause, and uncover a new opportunity. So I would say that you absolutely can quantify it if you're really intentional about it.
Yeah, and you are definitely talking a little bit down the road. It's in that initial conversation when somebody's never leveraged support before, trying to wrap their brain around how much is this costing and what is it making me, can be a disconnect. But I completely agree with you. I mean, if you want a job as a salesman, you can come work for ProAssisting whenever you want.
Thank you. All right, so let's dive into a little bit more on your process, because I think I really want to kind of dive into this, because I'm a big fan of executive assistants. I'm a big fan of the virtual model. I'm a big fan of the fractional model, the VA model. There's certain things that people around the world can do, and then there's certain things that you want that one personal person that you can call. It's just there are multiple different models, and I think someone can use, I know I do, use multiple of those models at the same time. So, but talk about kind of your process and how that begins to work for someone who's sitting there thinking, I need to begin to delegate. I'm drowning. I'm so busy. What's my first step? What's step one?
It's talking to providers. I mean, it's having a call with me. It's having a call with other virtual assistant companies. It's looking at the price points. It's contemplating how much is the end assistant being paid, who is going to be partnered with you, and taking all that information in and then making a decision. It's at our level, we're dealing with assistants who are in that six-figure range, salary range in major metropolitan areas, and you have access to that talent on a fractional basis.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit different than working with someone overseas. If you're dealing with wanting to make sure your CRM is cleaned up and you're, and there are some asynchronous tasks and projects that can happen, that can totally work for you. If you want that idea of like a 5-star concierge in the cloud that knows everything about you and can act on your behalf, maybe we're a better fit. Or maybe you do need to hire a full-time person. And that's, understanding and being aligned around expectations and what your needs are, and really digging into those needs to determine which service would be best for you or which person would be best for you. And then there's the other half of that equation is how we source, partner with, and then partner with clients, our EAs.
Yeah, great. So rewind with me a little bit. So you know, you and your wife are both executive assistants. Rewind even further for me. You know, take me to a space and a mentor before you were maybe 10 years old that taught you something that you're bringing into today's business.
Well, I both my stepfather and my dad were both entrepreneurial. My dad really took it to the nth degree, and working for him in the family restaurant was, you know, was it still plays a role. I really believe hospitality and emotional intelligence play a huge role in work nowadays, and in life. And but one thing my dad always said to me, he's like, "Look, you want to open a pizza shop one day, draw a 50-mile radius around where you want to live, try every single piece of pizza in that circle, find the best one, go work for them for 3 years, and then I'll help partner you. I'll partner with you, and we'll open a pizza shop." And what we did with ProAssisting is kind of the same thing.
Yeah,
We spent 20 years in New York City being at the in the C-suite of billion-dollar organizations working for CEOs. We saw an opening, we saw a gap based on that experience, and we planted our flag and went for it.
yeah.
So yeah.
I love looking for the gaps. I love looking for the gaps. It's and when you have the right team in place that you can delegate to, you can find more gaps. I really do believe that, Ethan, because um, there's a gap that I've seen for a long time for coaching for coaching 16 to 18 year olds, right? Those people in high school, college, grad school, med school, law school, trade school, go from high school to working. There's no there's no coaching. So I always had this, long story short. So I had this gap. I've been thinking about it for 10 years. I interviewed a friend of mine on the podcast, was sharing with him the afterwards my idea. He said, "That's a great idea. I've always wanted to do that too." And we're launching a business, for a coaching business for 16 to 28 year olds. And it's launching in a couple weeks.
That's
But there's a
fantastic.
and it's going to teach them everything about life, how to build their personal brand, and all the career stuff. And it's going to be every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 21-minute live sessions. We're going to have guest speakers. There's going to be mentor hours so they can call and ask questions. We're going to have guests like you hopefully come and speak on Wednesdays. But it's going to be great, and it's a monthly program. It's going to be, as of right now, $89 a month, and they're going to learn so much that they aren't learning necessarily and or paying attention to. But it was a gap, and that's where money's made, in the gaps.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And we're doing the same thing. Well, not the same thing, but we are launching a training program based on all of our experience now after running this business and being career really high level C-suite EAs, for future proofing EAs
Yeah,
who love what they do and want to know all of their options.
right.
And
And that doesn't really exist either. That's a gap.
it is. It
Right.
absolutely is. And I actually think that that side of the business 5 years from now could be bigger than the remote
Yeah.
support side.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating, and I really love mentoring and coaching in that way.
Me too. Too.
And people say, well, you must be really passionate about being an executive assistant. And I wouldn't say I'm really passionate about it, but it definitely gets my juices flowing, and I really get excited when I'm shining a light on an EA's life and where they are and where they could be and how it's not that hard. And it's fascinating. I think what you're doing is awesome.
It's going to be
I
great.
hope you talk about finances
We
and
are. It's going to be
all
one
of
of the
that.
key things. In our research. A big thing that we're hearing is that we wish we learned more about how money works and finances, and Yeah, we're gonna talk about all that. We're gonna have a ton of guests every Wednesday. We have a guest speaker. It's gonna be great. I'll keep you posted on it. But
Please.
but that being said, what is one thing that you wish you learned in high school or college that would have helped you in your business, along the way or today?
I guess what's really fascinating to me is that I think there are different seasons in your career,
Yeah,
and that's never really talked about in the beginning. It's more like kind of just go and figure it out. I
yeah,
guess one of the things is not really focusing on money in your 20s. It's more about gaining experience. In my 20s, or when my kids, my two boys, get into their 20s, I'm going to be more encouraging of, one, have a very, very low standard of living in terms of what your monthly nut is. But two, don't be afraid to take that less paying job to work for someone who's really on that path that you wanted to go on, because in your 20s it's all about still compounding, leveling up knowledge and information. And then you'll be further ahead at 35 versus someone who just was focusing on the money all in their 20s, purely based on the information knowledge network you've created in your 20s.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
something to think about.
they say your 20s are for learning, your 30s are for earning.
Yeah. There you go.
That's what
There
they
you
say.
go.
There we go. All right,
Yeah.
let's do a quick speed round. A book, a TED Talk, or an article that's had a big impact on you.
The TED Talk, How to Be a Hospitalian by Bobby Stuckey. It's an 8-minute TED Talk about hospitality and how it should infuse every aspect of our lives. And it came out in 2014, and I've probably watched it 500 times.
Which one is it called? What's it called?
How to Be a Hospitalian.
I never heard of that one. I'm excited. Thanks for sharing that. How to Be a Hospitalian. All right, I got it right here. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
This too shall pass.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. I just said that to a client this morning. Finish this sentence. One thing everybody needs to do to be a better delegator is.
Let go.
Amen. Think community. I love this podcast because I get to have guests like Ethan on that are in alignment with my mission of getting you unstuck. Ethan, you gave a lot of great suggestions today on how to get unstuck and grow your business and really follow your dreams and follow your passion and pay attention, think community, to the gaps. What are the gaps in your business? When I'm doing annual meetings, I talk about this with clients a lot, but when I'm doing annual or quarterly meetings, I always say to them, if you were to put yourself out of business and start from scratch, what would you be doing? Because there's a bunch of 20 somethings or 30 somethings across the street at a coffee shop who can see your gaps way bigger than you can because you're running so fast, and they're going to start another business with a smidge less margin and still be highly profitable and grow. And so it's really, really important in community. We talk about this a lot. What are the gaps in your business? And if you are burning out, if you're working too fast, if you're trying to wear every single hat, if you're trying to save money and you look at delegation, and if you look at hiring people like an executive assistant or a VA as an expense, you're going to fall behind, in my opinion, because you should be looking at it as an investment on where you can spend your time more effectively on your leading activities that can help you grow your business and make more money and have more fun and have less stress in your brain. Ethan, tell everybody who your ideal clients are and how they can connect with you.
Our ideal clients are anyone who's a solopreneur, consultant, coach, really wanting to be clearing 500,000 in revenue and north of that, all the way up to a C-suite executive running $100 million company who's never had an assistant before. And if that sounds crazy, we have one of those clients, and we've been with him now for over a year. So really, it really fills a large gap, but at our price point and the support we provide, we really want to see that minimum bar met, because we're really all about long-term relationships, even though our agreements are month to month.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I do no contracts in my coaching business.
Wow.
But I'm the same way. Like, I bring value, and if I don't, then don't use me anymore.
Right.
But I agree. So I love the month to month. It really helps people kind of make a decision faster. All right, Think Community, Ethan, this was great. Thanks again to our friend Justin Breen. And if you guys want to get a hold of Ethan, give me your website one more time.
ProAssisting.com or on LinkedIn, Ethan Bull on LinkedIn.
Great. And you can reach me at jondwoskin.com if you want to talk about any type of coaching. Ethan, stay on for a bit. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Think Community. Ethan, this was great. Thanks a ton.
Thanks, John.